So Braden has this about decade long background in 3D printing, which if you've been tracking 3D printing, that's about the whole time it's been around in the public eye anyway. And he's the original founder of Robo 3D. I have a Robo 3D right here behind me in my office, and we take it to trade shows. And it was actually us taking the Robo 3D printer to trade shows over and over again that prompted this webinar, right? It's not necessarily about the Robo 3D printer. It's about curriculum software solutions to kind of shake the dust off your 3D printer initiative. And I'll just tell you the pain point that kind of led to this webinar for us was we'd go to these trade shows, we'd have probably 100 people at a trade show will come up and say, oh, we love 3D printing. It's so cool. We like it. And we'd say, are you actively doing it in your school or district? And 50 or 60% of those would say, well, no. And there were two main reasons that led to this webinar. Two main reasons why they're not 3D printing anymore. It's usually person X left, teacher so-and-so, they left, and they were really driving the initiative, and nobody really knows how to use the 3D printer now, right? It seems like it's just complicated enough, it's just sort of niche enough that they don't know how to use it. Or folks have figured out how to use it, but it just doesn't feel like it's really meeting educational goals and helping you to, pass tests and, teach the kids something. It's like, my kids the other day were like, hey, I want to print a baby Yoda. And I'm like, okay, that's so cool. You can print a baby Yoda. There's no educational value, other than maybe the design element of it. So is it meeting educational goals, and is it easy enough to use that, anybody can kind of jump back into it? That's why we started this webinar. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Braden, who is our subject matter expert, and he's going to take us through kind of what's going on in 3D printing and what can you do at your school or district. So without any further ado, the guy who actually knows about 3D printing and MyStemKits, which we'll definitely get to here, Braden, go for it.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here, but what I want to do, I'm going to teach you guys a couple of different things, and we'll go through kind of each of them separately. And then I want to give a little bit of time for Q&A. I know we put a 30-minute time block on this, so I'm going to try and be respectful of that and stay within the time frame because I know everyone has busy lives. Okay. So the three things we're going to talk about around 3D printing is we're going to talk about the industry and some of the ways it's being used. We're going to talk about some resources that are available to you all out there, especially just free resources that you can go and use as a teacher or an educator. And then we'll kind of dive into our MyStemKits.com curriculum platform, which I know is kind of, some of the features of the actual prompt for this webinar or this, learning lab type thing. So yeah, I want to give you guys some good resources. I want you to learn some stuff. And, I want you to be equipped to kind of go out there and use the 3D printers. And at the end of it, too, I will give you guys a free extended trial to MyStemKits.com. It does work with over 75 different brands of 3D printers. So, you'll be able to utilize it. Now, who am I? I've been in the 3D printing space for over 12 years now. One of the founders of Robo 3D. This is our first office. We literally started in a garage. As you can see here, a very messy garage. And, we were able to build, now we're on to our 4th generation 3D printer, but we funded all our kind of initial 3D printers through Kickstarter. So we raised over $1 million on Kickstarter in 2 different campaigns. And, we've now focused all our efforts on our E-series 3D printers, which are for education. And we're on our 4th generation 3D printer called the E4. Okay. E4 and E4 Pro. We can talk a little bit about that if you want, but this is not a sales pitch on 3D printers. But we do have some really great education 3D printers that, we can take a look at here. Why I love doing what I do. I always love sharing stories. This is my favorite story, guys. I tell this time and time again, just because it's so impactful. And a lot of the ethos around our program is to cater to teachers that have never used 3D printers before. Okay. We want to empower teachers to use this technology. I've seen the impacts it's had. It's phenomenal. Shelly is a perfect example of that. She is a 5th grade teacher I met at ISTE, the trade show, in about 2017. She was like, I've never used a 3D printer before. I don't know what to do with this thing. I was like, Shelly, we have some really good education 3D printers. We have a full curriculum platform at MyStemKits.com. Just dive into it and start printing and doing things in the classroom. So she did that and started making some of the kits we had, started actually moving into doing design challenges that we have in that platform with her 5th grade students. And then goes home one night and sees a documentary about how coral is like dying around the world. The oceans are just being depleted of coral. So she goes back to her 5th grade class, shows them this documentary, and one of the kids suggests they design, because they've learned how to do 3D design little coral that they can print and make a coral wall in their classroom. That's all 3D printed. So you can see one of the pictures of the coral. They start doing that. And then they take it a step further because the kids actually want to try and solve this problem. So they found online that there's an algae-based 3D printing material. And so they ended up contacting the company that makes it. And long story short, they started working with marine biologists and they started developing structures that could be planted in the ocean that create coral colonies. And they dissolve over time, so they're biodegradable. They leave a sustainable coral colony. So it's a teacher that never used a 3D printer before, went through our curriculum, started using our printers, and is now doing world-changing projects. And this is in a small town in Montana, not even near the ocean. So this is why I do what I do, and I want to recreate these stories in so many schools and districts across the country. So the one thing I think we can all agree on is 3D printing is important. It's very diverse. It's an object that can make a lot of different things, okay? Most people, we'll talk about what most people think of it as, but, why is it important? It promotes creativity. It allows students to solve problems, right, by creating solutions, and it also builds self-confidence in students. Something I always say is it builds an engineering mindset, which means they think like an engineer. Whether they want to become an engineer or not, that's besides the point. We want them thinking like one. We want them to be methodical about things in life, and 3D printing really does bring that out in students, and quite frankly, also in teachers that use it. And 3D printing is impacting every major industry, okay? Which means lots of career opportunities. So most people think of it, once again, as this, right? You go around trade shows, you see fun plastic items, and they're like, what can I use a 3D printer before? And they say fun stuff like this, right? But really, this technology is across every major industry, okay? And you probably don't know about all of them, but we're going to go through a couple of examples. This is where it started, creating prototypes, creating products, right? Most of you may or may not know this, but if you've ever had Invisalign, the retainers, those are made in a factory that has all 3D printing, okay? So it really initially was used for prototyping and creating products. It's expanded beyond that, right? We use it in engines, right? So cars you drive, planes you fly in, all have 3D printed components in them. We use it for houses, right? You see homes that are being built with 3D printers. So 3D printing construction is a major industry right now, and it's only growing, okay? There's a whole industry called bio 3D printing, so creating organs and things like that, right? So using cells, and instead of, our printers make plastic objects, these use cells and they deposit them in these are sort of like interactive layers, and they actually build organs that way. So really cool stuff. And then there's things like people making rockets, right? There's a company in LA called Relativity Space that uses a massive 3D printer that they built to create a rocket body. So it's really, really cool stuff. Tons of career opportunities in this space. And sometimes just having a 3D printer in one of your spaces sparks student minds and get them excited to actually use it and design things.
I know I've seen that myself, just to jump in, Braden.
Yep.
It's like we'd never done any 3D printing before. Advent Tech, we decided we're going to start taking a 3D printer to our trade shows just to sort of see if there's interest in it.
Yep.
So I get it and I take it from my office to my home office. My kids see it, and before you know it, it's like they're on, I think you'll talk about some of these, Tinkercad, Thingiverse.
Yep.
They're out there basically designing their own cups with their names 3D printed across the top. And of course, they're printing dragons and little teddy bears and stuff like that too. But it was crazy to me to see my kids go from, 0 to 60 when I just gave them access to a 3D printer. So just even my own 4 elementary age student experience, it was crazy to see how quickly they picked up on 3D design and even the challenges. They would design something and then it wouldn't print right, because there was void space or the platforms didn't quite capture it. And we're like, okay, well, how do we solve that problem? So yeah, again,
I think just riffing off that, Charlie, like my favorite thing to see is students that are quieter, a little shyer, don't have a lot of self-confidence. When they learn how to design something in 3D and then they print it and they hold it in their hand, that experience is like something you've never seen before. It's like super empowering for them. They feel like they've created a product, created a business almost in a way. And it's just like this motivational tool as well. So that's kind of like the flip side of it too, is there's a lot of benefits on, just self-confidence that can be built from having technology like this around. So a lot of people ask us, how does 3D printing relate to STEM learning? And, some of you in here might already know what STEM stands for as an acronym, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. What we like to do with technology like 3D printers is think of it a little bit differently. So I flip STEM around to make it make more sense, okay? So I say, how do we use 3D printing technology and how do we take it and teach science? How do we use it to teach math? How do we use it to teach history and language arts and all these other subjects? And when you're doing that, when that technology is in a space and teaching all these different subjects, you're going to naturally develop an engineering mindset. And this is one of the most important things for students to have is an engineering mindset. I harp on this all the time. I do presentations on engineering mindset. It is like such a powerful tool in life, not in school, not in education, in life. Okay, so this extends well beyond the classroom. So use the technology you're buying, use 3D printers to bring learning to life. And we'll talk a lot about that when we get into the MyStemKits.com and kind of show how that platform's built to allow you to use 3D printers to teach all these subjects. So you're looking for 3D printers. Where do you start? If you have 3D printers in here, I mean, you can type in the Q&A and talk about, what you do with the 3D printers if you want. If you're looking for them, feel free to ask any questions in there. But really, there's a couple of key components, and this is why we built the 3D printers we have. One, you want it to be safe, right? You're going to be in an enclosed space with students and teachers. You want to make sure that they're not being exposed to, plastic particles. You want to make sure that things are quiet and not disruptive to the space that you have them in. Obviously, you want them to be easy to use. You want them to connect to your devices you have, right? Or your networks that you have in your school environment. You want to make sure that you can use a lot of different materials, right? There's tons of cool stuff out there, right? There's, most people know just like the PLA simple plastic, but there's wood infused plastics, there's magnetic infused plastics, there's carbon fiber infused plastics, all this cool stuff out there. So you want a machine that has an open system that allows you to use that various stuff. Obviously, you want it to be portable if you want to move it from space to space. And you need curriculum and 3D models, especially for teachers that have not used 3D printers before. Now, I don't know every single kind of position of all the people that are in this webinar, but a lot of the times when schools or districts are buying 3D printers, they have a tech savvy person making that decision. And I always try and remind them that you are not a representative of all the teachers that are on the campus, right? Or the district, right? You're going to have a lot of teachers that have never used a 3D printer before. They're scared as heck of it. If you give them a program that has curriculum and has training resources, it's going to give them a really easy way to get up and running and get started. And sometimes just that spark leads to stories like I told you with Shelly Emsley, right? Where she creates artificial coral reefs with her classroom. The number one problem I see with 3D printing in schools, Charlie kind of mentioned this because we hear this time and time again at trade shows, but I want to explain this process to you in sort of like a step-by-step guide, okay? Number one, you buy a 3D printer. Maybe it's on Amazon, maybe somewhere random. It's a cheap one. You buy it, just the hardware. Teachers got to go and find resources online. It's confusing. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to integrate it into their classroom. It just creates this sort of like searching for content that helps bring this 3D printer to life, right? Maybe they don't have any training resources and no support resources, so they're kind of left to figure it out on their own. Then they have to learn how to use the software and prepare these models to actually print. Okay, and then they finally get to their first print. I mean, this process can take hours and hours of time typically. With that said, it has a really low success rate. So when we go to shows and we say, hey, do you have 3D printers? Yeah, we have them. What are you guys using them for? No one's really using them. That's why, okay? That process is very cumbersome. The way we kind of do our program is you get the 3D printers, they're built for the classroom. It comes with training, step-by-step resources and certification. And then it also comes with access to our curriculum platform, okay? You can directly print from this curriculum platform. And what we've seen is we have a much higher success rate, okay? So if you get our 3D printer, you're going to be happy.
It's high tech graphics there. Yeah, that's good.
High tech graphics. I like using the basic graphics because it kind of brings the point clearer. But yeah, you're going to get access to MyStemKits.com, which works with other printers as well. So if you have them, and you're in here and you want to use a curriculum resource, that'll be there as well. Okay. So let's get into some of the resources that are available, some of the meat that's out there. Once again, I'm only going to give you free resources. I don't want you to have to pay money for these resources or anything like that. I want you to be able to access these. And some of these you may know, and some of them you may be hearing for the first time, but a lot of great stuff that exists out there to help fuel your 3D printing usage in the classroom, okay? Or at home. Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of show you these, not through a presentation, but through the actual resource itself, okay?
Awesome.
So there is a multitude of great resources that you can utilize in a school space, in a maker space, in a classroom, whatever it may be, to help kind of keep that 3D printer active, right? We want that thing running. We want students to be exposed to it. We want them to see it in action. We want them to get inspired. Okay, so Thingiverse is probably the most common one. It's a website. Think of it like a Amazon, for 3D models, except all these are free. You can go on here and you can type search terms. You can go search through categories. You can go to the, I don't know, most popular ones, whatever it may be, and find models that you can print. All these, you can just click into it. If you're like, hey, this little fidget traffic cone is pretty cool, you can go down and click the files. You can download this model and you can send it directly to the 3D printer. Okay. So it's a really fun, easy way to either get a template for something that maybe you're designing and creating, or just come up with cool ideas that you can use in the classroom, at home, whatever it may be. There's also a website called My Mini Factory, which is very similar. So Thingiverse and My Mini Factory are probably the two if you're taking notes here, where you can find a ton of great models that amazing designers have uploaded for free. The second one that I love sharing, just because I've used it so much and we have some really cool stories about how schools have used it, is called Lithopane Maker. Okay, it's lithopanemaker.com. Why I love this is you can go on here and they have all these lithopane kind of templates. So it allows you to take a 2D image and turn it into a three-dimensional print that sort of brings it to life in a different and unique way. So this one right here is pretty cool. It's like a lithopane globe maker. We actually had a class that was doing a history project, and the students had to create or find an image that depicted this kind of historical moment that they were talking about with their classroom. And they ended up turning those into these like globe lithopanes because they had a 3D printer. And this was around Christmas time, and they actually made a Christmas tree of history moments. And it's just a really cool way to kind of use the 3D printer, use it in kind of a non-traditional class. Most people don't think of 3D printers in history, and create something that was really powerful and spectacular for them. So yeah, really cool website. Check it out. Lots of great resources in there, and it's really fun to use and make these kind of lithopanes with a 3D printer. Third one is called Doodle 3D. Okay, Doodle 3D is very simple. You go on here, doodle3d.com. It's free. It's easy. I can draw my name, or I can draw an image, whatever you want it to be. I don't know. You can play around with it, right? And my friends call me Braid, so I can do Braid. And then I can just take this model and I can save it as a file, okay? After I'm done drawing it over here on this side, okay? You can change some of the different things on it. You can erase it. You can do a lot of different stuff with it, but it's a really easy way, especially for like younger students in elementary, to be able to kind of design and create very simplistic items by just drawing. Or if they have like iPads or any touch devices, they can do it with their finger as well. So once you're done, you just click this little save icon up here and you can save that model or that file, and then you can send it to the printer. We can put a little like resource list together for you guys as well. Another one that I know there's a trend for AI. I know everyone wants AI implemented into their lives. Well, there is a great AI tool for 3D modeling. Okay. This is an area where I said AI was going to impact 3D printing and 3D design. Like one of the biggest changes will happen in that space. So there's one called Meshy. I've used 10 different AI design tools. This is the best one I found. So you don't need to go and search through all of them. Go to Meshy, sign up. You get like 200 free credits. I think every time you generate a model or a prompt in there, you use like 10 credits. So it's free for a while, and I think it refills over time. But you can go in here and type like house that looks like the White House, whatever you want it to be, right? And then you click generate model, and it will start building you a 3D model. Now it takes a little bit of time here to actually, you can see over here, it's generating the model now, but it's a really cool way to kind of use creative prompts to create 3D models. Now, once you've created those prompts, you can, and the model's been created, you can take the model off this platform and you can bring it into a separate software and like mess with it if you want to. The reason I wouldn't go directly this route is because you want students to understand how to build stuff first, okay? I got my AI model back for the White House. So everyone. So it does take about a minute or two to actually do that, but yeah, you can.
It generated all 4 of those options actually.
Yep. And you can pick which option you want to like move forward with, and it will kind of perfect that model once you picked it. So I would probably move forward with this one. This one looks like kind of the best looking to me. So I can pick that, and then it will kind of like mess with it and texturize it and all that stuff. So it makes it a really nice model. And then last and not least, if you want to go beyond just printing plastic and other items, there is a website called Sculptio, which allows you to take a model you've already created. You can upload it into here and you can choose from like 100 different materials to print it in. So if you want to do it in gold plated materials, things like that, it'll create kind of like a finished model. So a lot of students you'll see will gravitate towards design. They'll make really cool stuff, but they'll be like, oh, I want to make it in gold or whatever. And you're like, well, we don't have gold. And I'm talking about like real gold plated, looks like an actual gold piece. And so Sculptio would be kind of where we would direct them to go and take their models they've made and kind of, build it in a new material. So a little bit about our program right here, right? We have like two different models of 3D printers. We have the training and certification course for teachers. So it really helps the teachers that have never used 3D printers. And then we have access to this MyStemKits.com with over 450 lessons. They all have standards driven lessons, all that stuff. So NGSS and state. So we're going to dive a little bit into it. But once again, the point of this is to make teachers' lives easier when they're confronted with their 3D printer. Okay, we have turned so many beginner teachers into power users because they've had a really simplistic way of using this technology with our curriculum platform. So I want to dive into the curriculum platform, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, the design side of it and Tinkercad. Okay, because a lot of people want to implement design in the classroom, but they've never, really used the 3D printer in the classroom, first and foremost. So I think there's kind of a step-by-step process that works the best. Okay. So once again, with our 3D printing program, you get access to MyStemKits.com. If you already have 3D printers, I said it's MyStemKits.com is compatible with over 75 different brands. So you could use your 3D printer and just get a license to MyStemKit. Now we are constantly building upon this platform. There's always new, this one just came in today. There's always new kits and new activities and new lessons kind of diving into this platform. But the point of this is to give teachers a very simplistic way to use the 3D printer to bring learning to life, okay? And that's bring learning to life in science, that's in math, that's in language arts, that's in social studies, that's in art, right? All these different subjects that you can utilize a 3D printer to create learning lessons, okay? The cool thing about MyStemKits, which is very unique, if we have 3D printer users in here, you understand how hard it is sometimes to use the software for 3D printing. So how do I take a model I found online or one I've designed and actually get it to the printer? Well, you typically would have to put it through a software and do all this different stuff. With MyStemKits, you actually can link your 3D printer into the platform. So you have they have a relationship together, right? Link your 3D printer into MyStemKits, then go into Browse Kits, and the hundreds and hundreds of models and lesson plans we have in here, you can send these models directly through the platform to the printer. You don't need any other software or anything like that. It's all cloud-based, boom. If you want to print, these salamanders, if you want to print a catapult, stuff like that, we have them all built into this platform, okay? So say I'm like, hey, this catapult kit's really cool. We do a trebuchet activity, but we make it with popsicle sticks and things like that. Well, now you can do a 3D printed version of it, right? So you can go into the catapult kit. You can watch a video on it, really cool little 2-minute video. We have lessons down here that are all NGSS and state aligned lessons. And then if you want to print this catapult, you can just click print. You can send it directly to the printer and it's going to start printing this catapult. If I just select this printer, it's going to send that file off to the thing and you're going to have a catapult in, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes with our new printer or less.
Braden, if somebody did want to do some edits to it before they printed it or something, is there sort of slicing software that is built in?
So I enabled one-click print, but if I did not do that, I just click select printer, this is where I could mess with it and rotate it and duplicate it if I want to add another one, right? If I want to copy it, I can add multiple and then you can click next and all that stuff, right? Yeah, there's a ton of different things you can do here to kind of manipulate it from the slicing and then you just send it to the printer through here, okay? So it makes it really easy for teachers to find fun activities, print it, and then do a lesson that's standards driven with those models. Now, this is going to help students learn with hands-on models. It's going to expose them to 3D printing. They're not doing design here, but it's a way to kind of get the technology flowing in the classroom. Have it be a part of the culture of the classroom. When teachers are ready and they feel comfortable, they can move into doing design. So they could be like, hey, we printed this catapult. We've done this challenge. Now it's on you guys to create your own catapult lever. Okay. So we're going to use our design challenge. They're going to go into Tinkercad, which is a free modeling software, and the students are all going to build their own catapult. So you can go from, I call it print and teach. So the models we've already created, do fun hands-on activities with students to learn a topic in a unique way, and then move into design and engineering. If you're more comfortable, you can just go straight into our design challenges and just focus on doing design. Okay, we have K to 12 design challenges that are educational as well. Okay, it's not making a keychain and calling it a day. It's doing things that are actually educational and fun design activities. Okay, so we have a
Yeah.
whole bunch of design challenges, and we're growing the design challenge library as well. And all these design challenges have a very easy format, but we use Tinkercad to do the design challenges. If anyone in here knows anything about Tinkercad or has used Tinkercad before, it's like the beginner's free software for education for doing 3D design. Okay. It's all shape based. You can bring models into here. You can start manipulating the size of the models. You can, I'm building like, say, a little house here. I can start creating my little house and, all that stuff. So it's a really simple software. Students will pick up on it very easily. And this is kind of the beginning stages of them becoming an engineer, right? Designing and creating their own products is doing it this way. Okay, so I built my little house. Maybe I want to put a little chimney on it, right? So there's really simple ways of using this software to create models and, do an actual design challenge. So you can use the design challenges we have in MyStemKits, or you can simply prompt students to develop something. Maybe it's something in your particular area or city that is important, or something that maybe could help the city that they can design and create.
My kids have just started doing these kind of nature walks, and they're doing it with like 4 different grades and classrooms. And I just was talking to my daughter the other day. I said, "What do you do in these nature walks?" And she said, "Oh, we do. Sometimes we'll collect specimens and take them back and look at them under microscopes and stuff. We look for a lot of animal prints." And like as soon as she said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's an animal print My STEM kit lesson where I could literally go in and print the duck, fox, squirrel, raccoon footprints and actually just give it to this, fourth, fifth grade teacher that's taking all these classes out." And so it's just, it's so funny because once you really start to learn about these resources, it's really fun. And, what's great is we can print this and then they can take it out with them when they're looking at footprints on the ground. They can actually take the little 3D print, press it on the ground next to the other footprint and say, is this a match? And then once you printed that once, you can just take it on every class, every excursion they do. So that was one that literally just came up last week talking to my daughter. And she
Yeah.
said, we need to make some time to print these footprints for my class.
And one thing I want to say about this for everyone that's listening to is the cost of printing this stuff is very inexpensive compared to buying things like online, right? Like, manipulative 3D printing, like using a 3D printer to make educational manipulatives like this, like skulls, like DNA models, like all this stuff, is going to be 1/100th of the cost of buying them online. Printing material is very inexpensive. All like literally this entire picture of tracks is going to be maybe a few dollars worth of print material. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's in your benefit to use the 3D printer to create manipulatives because you're not only exposing students to the technology, but you're also creating manipulatives at a very affordable price. One last point, I'm not going to take too much time, but why we use Tinkercad in a lot of our design challenges is teachers can set up a Tinkercad classroom and you can invite all your students without having accounts, and then you can kind of see everything that they're designing and creating. So it makes it really easy for you in the classroom to kind of manage a group of students that are designing things at the same time. You can see all their students' designs, all their creations. And then when they're ready to print, they can type in there that they're ready to print, and then you can go inspect it and send it to the printer through Tinkercad. And so hopefully you guys got some great resources. As Charlie
Yep.
mentioned, we will put a list together and send them off to you.
Yep. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
thanks, guys. Take care.